Now I invite our chief guest, Honorable Dr. G. Mohan Gopal sir, former Director, National Judiciary Academy.
You have explained in detail, sir, the origin of the reservation is prospect, and you rightly explained the EWS as enemy of the weaker section, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, some questions will be there, and I have compiled some questions on behalf of all dignitaries. Sir, my first question to both of you, sir. What will be the future of the EWS reservation and how it will affect the original reservation concept of socially and educationally backwardness, sir?
I think I've answered that question, Mr. Jaronde, in my presentation. I have answered that question, so let Advocate Chauhan answer it. That was the main point I made in my second half.
Next question is, sir, how five-judge bench can turn down the basic principle of the reservation based on the socially and educationally backwardness said by the nine-judge bench, and is there such judicial principle to do so?
So here I have briefly referred to it. The nine-judge bench in Indira Sawhney did not include any holding that any of its on basic structure of the Constitution. It did not say that any of its holding is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. Therefore, only if it had said 50% ceiling or creamy layer is part of the basic structure, could we have considered that in this five-judge bench, considered that to decide whether the amendment violates the basic structure or not. Otherwise, it is not relevant to that narrow question. Does this amendment violate the basic structure? For that, we can only consider whether it violates the norms of basic structure already established by courts. The nine-judge bench did not add any new element to the basic feature of the Constitution. Therefore, it cannot be considered.
Sir, why 50% limit has not been considered in the judgment?
So because no Supreme Court judgment has said that 50% limit. Indira Sawhney itself did not say there is a limit. Indira Sawhney said that that it is a normal limit, but it can be exceeded in exceptional circumstances for remote areas and so on. But in any case, no judgment of the Supreme Court has held that 50% limit on reservation is part of the basic structure. In this case, we can only consider whether the amendment violates whatever has been accepted in the past by the Supreme Court as part of the basic structure. Or this five-judge bench could have said, as one extremist right-wing petitioner argued, that this must be considered as part of the basic structure, but this court refused to do that, did not do that. That it is part of the basic structure. So far, no Supreme Court judgment has said 50% is part of the basic structure. This five-judge bench also refused to do that. So it is not part of the basic structure, which means the Parliament exercising its constituent power is free to exceed the 50%.
Sir, next question is, shall this judgment will harmful to the Articles 15.4 and 16.4 in future?
Sir, it is harmful in the way I have explained that in some detail, but to summarize again, 15.4 and 16.4 are intended to address the problem of intergroup inequality by giving reservations to backward classes, not to backward individuals, to backward classes. Why? Because we want backward classes to become forward classes and to be equal with all classes in terms of strength as a class, as a group, caste or community, to be equal. So now that you have brought in reservations that are going to give greater strength to forward class, not just to individuals, but only to forward class individuals. Now to get EWS, you have to prove that you are not a member of a backward class Savarna. You have to prove you are forward class Savarna. If you are backward class Savarna, you will not get EWS reservation. You will only you get EWS reservation if you prove you are a forward class Savarna. So by bringing in an amendment that will strengthen the forward class Savarna, You have actually really damaged the project of 15.4.16.4, which is to close this gap between forward and backward classes by strengthening the backward classes and make them forward classes. To push that back, to neutralize that, you have brought in a reservation which you are restricting only to forward class Savarna. Double forwardness. First of all, upper caste, secondly, forward class. And thirdly, this very high limit, 66,666 rupees per month. Anyone below that, 5 acres of rural land, flat land in urban areas, which is almost all of them. So basically what you're saying is, if you are a member of a upper caste and forward class, if you're upper caste, backward class, no, you can't get EWS. If you're upper caste, forward class, then you get reservation. Why? To ensure that the upper caste remains always much stronger than the backward class. So it is severely damaging the larger constitutional project of 15.4.16.4, which is one reason why the two judges actually, the main reason why the two judges struck it down is they said your exclusion of backward classes is wrong. Because it will create a gap, they did not say that, implicitly they said that. In fact, Justice Lalit was asked 2 days after he retired. The retired Chief Justice who dissented was asked, why did you dissent? And he answered in a very forthright way. He said it's because forward class poverty and backward class poverty is not the same thing, he said. He said, backward class people face many more hurdles than forward class. Therefore, we cannot equate them. We cannot give it to poor people who face less hurdles and exclude poor people who face more hurdles. And that is not permitted by the Constitution. That's a simple answer he gave. So from that we can understand what damage. We must understand 15.4.16.4 is not an employment scheme for us. It is not for our economic upliftment. It is a scheme to convert India into a prosperous democratic country in future by addressing the main problem of India, that India is a country where there is a vast inequality of power between communities. Have you ever heard of Iyer and Iyengar and Nambudiri and Pandit and Chitpavan rioting against each other, kidnapping each other's women, or physically attacking each other? Why? Not because they don't have differences, but because they are all powerful communities. If all the communities become strong and powerful, we'll have peace in this country. Because people don't easily attack somebody who is powerful. Like I gave you the example of Muslims. None of these people, they were servants of the Muslim rulers, employees, public servants of the Muslim Muslim rulers. The moment the Muslims made a different country and the powerful Muslims left and the remaining became poor, they're attacking them. So we see the importance of building Baba Sahib Ambedkar's 91-year-old idea that, look, what we need in this country is all communities must become strong. All communities must become strong. And we are fighting for peace, social stability and progress in our country. We are fighting for our country, not for the jobs for us or education for our children. We are fighting for our country by saying that when this inequality is and all communities become strong, this country will be able to progress much faster and much better. We see in other countries, in Western countries, how much attention they are giving to representation. Out of 9 judges in the US Supreme Court, 1 retired recently. And they had already 3 women and 1 black male. But they decided to fill this. There was a consensus in the whole country that we do not have a black female. So they all decided that this vacancy must be filled by a black female because they must be represented. This is only in 2022, this year. They must be represented. And they looked amongst very eminent black female jurists. They found a superb, excellent jurist, and they appointed her as a judge of the Supreme Court, only 9 judges. So today they have 2 blacks, 1 male and 1 female. Although they are 12% of the population, they have 2 blacks out of 99. four of the 5 are women, and if you take all 9, there is not a single person born into the dominant community in the United States, like our Savarna forward class dominant communities, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. There is not one judge among the 9 judges who was born into that white Anglo-Saxon Protestant community. All are from backward what we would consider unrepresented, less represented, less powerful. So we can see how industrial countries, Europe and America, are giving great importance to ensure that all what Dr. Ambedkar said in 91 years ago, they are followed. They are followed. That all communities must have an adequate representation. Therefore, they are moving forward. Here we are in the hands of an oligarch, and the others are only suppressed and oppressed. They are not given any opportunity. How can this country move forward if everyone is not given an opportunity? That is what we are trying to do.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Last question, sir. What should
Yes,
be
sir.
our future strategy to protect the basic principle of the reservation? What should be our future
Sir, the future strategy, in my view, is we should demand reservation, but our main demand must be for representation. When we demand reservation, we are asked, how long will you ask for reservation? It has been 72 years. How long will we give you reservation? As if they are giving us something. If we demand representation, then we can ask them, the oligarchy, caste oligarchy, we can ask them, how long will you deny us representation? It has been 72 years that you have denied us representation. There has been to my knowledge, there has been no Supreme Court judge named Yadav in 72 years. There are many communities, my own community in Kerala, largest Hindu community, backward class community called EWS community. We've had judges, chief justices and so on, backward class community, poor community, but we have distinguished lawyers amongst them. 72 years, not one single person has become a Supreme Court judge. Except for 2 scheduled caste and 2 Muslims, every single person from Kerala who has become a Supreme Court judge is a forward class Hindu or a forward class Christian, the dominant former landlord classes. So we can ask them, as I'm asking them, how long will you deny us representation? Right? So our demand must be for representation now. And reservation, as Dr. Ambedkar said, in order to be proportionate to the need for representation. In other words, go much above 50% to achieve representation. Once you have achieved representation, reduce the reservation for those who are already represented. Do not give any representation. Now, if you talk of representation, a minimum or a norm of 8 judges of the 34 judges of the Supreme Court, 8 judges of the Supreme Court must be from scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. 8 judges. Now we have 1. Imagine what will happen if there are 8 SC ST judges in the Supreme Court. Imagine how the nature and character of the court will change. If there are 8 Supreme Court judges, how many benches will be led by them? Some benches will be only SC ST benches. Now we must demand that must be the norm from today. We don't want one token SC judge or ST judge. Why can't somebody like Justice Chauhan be a judge of the Supreme Court? Sr.Advocate Chauhan be a judge of the Supreme Court. We need 8 of them, 8 Chauhans in the Supreme Court. We have 1 already, so 7 Chauhans in the Supreme Court. We have Justice Gopal. Right? So we must demand representation. And then reservation must be, we must demand representation in the Supreme Court and High Court. And the regulation, to use Baba Sahib's language, the regulation of recruitment to achieve representation. So we'll have to stop recruiting some forward class communities that are overrepresented now for a long time. Maybe the Savarna forward communities may have 1 or 2 judges out of 34 maximum. Right? So this is how we should, I think going forward, our demand should be focused on representation and representative government. We must go back to the condition 5 of Baba Sahib Ambedkar and then say we need reservation to achieve that representation and demand that. And ask how long will you deny us representation, a representative government, and to say no vote without representation, no democracy without representation. And unless you change this enemy of weaker sections provision from the Constitution, which increases the inequality between forward and backward classes, we must, we will not vote for you. Whether it's Congress or BJP or any party, we will not vote for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, Honorable Dr. Chauhan sir will answer some questions. Question raised by Honorable Borkar sir. Borkar sir, you can explain your question.
Oh, if Borkar sir is there, I did not see him. Let me pay my respects and regards to him. We are in constant touch.
She's on dais, sir.
Yeah, I can't see on my screen.
Yes,
I
sir.
cannot.
Camera is on the podium.
Yes.
And he's,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Good evening, Borkar sir.